Rashi is a Pshuta Shel Mikra individual, but there are times when necessity forces him to include midrashic material. When he does this, he sometimes flags that the information is midrashic by writing Rabbeinu Darshu or Medrash Agada, but it is generally quite rare for him to indicate the authors of that midrashic material. Which brings us to another technique used by the Rebbe in his Sichot, that when Rashi quotes the author of a source, it is either to support the thesis in light of a secondary difficulty that the commentary might create. In other words, the inclusion of the author's name is not merely for identification purposes, but adds to the actual commentary. And this brings us to question number 5, the issue of the names. The option of Mora Halacha is recorded under the name of Rabbi Eliezer. The intoxication, Shtuye Yayin, comes to us from Rabbi Ishmael. Question 5 is, what is it that Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Ishmael specifically add to the commentary of Vateitze Eish, above and beyond mere identification purposes? Finally, we come to the fourth component of the Rashi, the introduction of a mashal. As mentioned earlier, the mashal is introduced to clarify the textual support for the Shtuye Yayin, intoxication position of Rabbi Yishmael. Drawing upon the smichut of Pasuk 9, the prohibition of entering the Mikdash area under state of Shtuye Yayin, and its link to the death of Nadav and Avihu. In brief, as mentioned earlier, the mashal goes something like this. There was a king who had a faithful servant. The servant went into places where he should not, bringing the palace into disrepute. The servant was removed and replaced with a new servant. Everybody was puzzled as to why the first servant needed to be removed, and things became clear when the second servant was given specific instructions not to be seen in certain sections of the city.
From this, the people understood that the original servant was removed because he brought the palace into disrepute by visiting places of ill repute. Similarly, the people did not understand why such a tragedy should have befallen Aaron with the deaths of Nadav and Avihu. It was only after they were told of a specific command given to Aaron regarding intoxication and the avoda that they understood that this was the reason for the deaths of his two sons.
There are many medrashim in Sefer Midrash Rabbah. However, for Perek 10, there is only one medrash that could be useful for understanding Pasuk 2 dealing with the death of Nadav and Avihu. Rashi's wording is Mashal Lamelech. There's a mashal about a king, Shahayalo ben Bayit, etc., that had a trusted servant, the etc. referring to the entire storyline, Kedi'ita Vayikra Rabbah, as it is recorded in Sefer Vayikra Rabbah. In light of the fact that there appears to be no other mashal that would be deemed appropriate to the situation of Nadav and Avihu, Rashi could merely have said Mashal Lamelech Kedi'ita Vayikra Rabbah. The words Shahayalo ben Bayit v'chulhu, on the surface anyway, would appear to be unnecessary and superfluous. Question 6 is the need for Rashi to include the superfluous information of Shahayalo ben Bayit v'chulhu. In summary, the brief of the Sikha is to respond to the following 6 questions. Firstly, the entire commentary is superfluous in light of the fact that the Chumash clearly states it was Neish Zara that they offered. If there is a need to offer a commentary or an explanation, the 2 explanations Rashi provides has very little in common with the actual text. 3, we have a heading problem. Rather than Vateitze Eish, the heading should have been Vayimutu, Lifnei Hashem. Question 4, the need for 2 options, and by implication the secondary difficulties that each of the options raises. Question 5 deals with the need for the names in light of the fact that Rashi generally doesn't quote the authorship of medrashic material that he includes. And last question dealt with the way in Rashi presents the mashal, the superfluous statement of Shahayalo ben Bayit v'chulhu.